Well, welcome back to SOLA TV, and if you don't know this guy, get to know him. Kelly Adell, Adell Game Calls. How's your dad, by the way?
Oh, he's great. He's headed to the duck camp right now. He called me a few minutes ago. He said, "We got coffee at the camp?" Yes, sir.
Well, Eli Adell is one of the legends in Louisiana duck hunting. How long you guys been making calls again?
Since 1981.
Oh, man, what a guy. You know, he got all his training. We've been over this before, playing music, and he played a lot of reed instruments, and he turned that into a big business across the country. You guys are pretty tall standing in that duck call, game call business.
That's absolutely right.
Let's talk a little bit right from Bossier City, too, and that's what I like. But let's talk a little bit about the duck season. What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Hearing a lot of good reports about birds moving. We have a really strong cold front that's coming down right now, and it's it's in the low 40s right now in Shreveport, and I think that it's going to end up pushing a good number of birds. You know, it's really dry in the Midwest this year. A lot of the coast has got good water. That means that we've had a lot of good fresh water along the coast. That pushes out the salt water. That gets all of that vegetation that those birds are wanting to eat. That gets all that vegetation growing. So I'm really excited about this year. I think it's going to be a really good season.
You guys struggled in Southwest Louisiana for a couple of years after the storms. Came back pretty strong.
Absolutely. You know, the storms damaged a lot of the water control structures. We got a lot of salt water that killed back a lot of things. And then, of course, we were in a 2-year drought. But this past year, that drought came to an end for Southwest Louisiana, and the water is fresh. The parts per million are real good for growing that grass, and things are green, and birds are showing up. So
how excited are you?
Oh, I am pumped. It's been a couple years, tough years. It's been a drought, not just with the weather, but as far as my hunting. So I'm excited about this year. It's going to be jam up.
You got a new game call this year? New duck call?
We do have a new duck call. We're doing some, got to keep that LSU going. We've got our carbon quacker. We did it in a candy series. So we've got it different colors. You know, we've got it grape, and then we've got it in the lemonade. And so grape and lemonade, we got our LSU. But we've got it in the various colors, doing something a little different. The call itself is a great, raspy, deep sounding, classic double reed. And of course, we've got our new, it was new last year, our new blue-winged teal call, our big barrel blue-winged teal call, and that thing's selling like hotcakes. We had a really good teal season this year, and guys that were able to use that call this year, they're coming back looking for it to get some more of them.
Well, Kelly, look, we're getting ready to start a new duck season, and for the guys who, I guess, want to add something new or change something up from last year about adding a new shot shell, you know, to their repertoire, and when they get out into the duck blind for the first time this year, tell us about how you can go about doing that, because, you know, that's a little new thing, you know, for them this year. Well, what's the changes they're going to have to make?
One of the most important things about getting ready for the duck season when it comes to choosing your shotgun shells is take that, whatever shell you end up purchasing, take it out and pattern that shotgun, okay? Shoot it on a piece of paper, but also shoot it on the water. See what kind of dimension you're getting, what kind of shot string you're getting with that particular shell, okay? You may want to change and get a choke tube for that particular gun. See what that pattern's doing. A lot of guys, they'll turn around and get 2 or 3 different brands of shotgun shells. That's fine before the season. You'd never want to get out there in the field, start shooting a certain load of shells, and then switch in the middle of the hunt. Each shell is going to shoot different from manufacturer to manufacturer, and plus, you know, you may have a little bit more powder in this one versus that one, shoot a little bit hotter. You want to make sure that you're shooting the same thing to be consistent.
Now, Kelly, there's a lot of different shot out there. If you change the dynamic from one shot that you're used to using in the same gun, do you change the dynamic of that shotgun?
You know, when you change to a different shell, you've got a totally different lead for that particular load that you're shooting out of your gun versus another type of shell. So, you know, when you start changing that up, that's too many variables to be thinking about and try to do on the spot. You need to do your homework. Do all of this ahead of time. Do it now before duck season starts so that it'll make you successful during the hunt.
Kelly, again, there's a lot of shot sizes, there's a lot of gauges out there, length of shot. How do you pick which one is right for your gun and for the right situation you're hunting? You certainly don't want to go trial and error when you're out there in the field.
When it comes to finding the right load, the right shotgun shell to shoot, you're going to have your different price ranges of shotgun shells, okay? Now, if you think about it, that old adage is, you know, you get what you pay for. Some of the more expensive shells are going to shoot a lot better out of a particular gun. I'm not saying that the inexpensive loads don't shoot fine, but you want to take several of them, test them out, see which one's going to work good. Some of the ones that have worked really well for me has been Kent Fast Steel. It works extremely well. It's been very consistent through the years. Winchester Supreme has been just absolutely dynamite. You can get into some of the other ones, such as you know, your Black Cloud and some of those other ones, Heavy Metal. All of these different ones have got specific features that give you an advantage. Your biggest advantage is always going to be go ahead, pattern it, test it out, see what shoots good for you. It's what you have confidence in and what you are going to be successful with.
Well, Kelly, chokes matter on a shotgun too. And what if what if you want to change the choke? You change the shell. How does all that work?
Joe, when it comes to choke tubes, one of the things you always want to pay attention to is look at what the manufacturer says. If it can be used for steel shot versus being used for a non-toxic, harder type of shot, the choke tubes use different ways to hold that wad back to help keep constriction off of that shot. Some of them use ports, exhaust ports. That creates a vacuum. Other types of chokes use strips that are in there that help to strip that wad. Well, you don't want to end up shooting a strip type of choke tube with some of those different really hard types of material, non-toxic material. It could damage that, and the last thing you want to do is to do something that the manufacturer doesn't recommend. But the key to that is talk to the manufacturer of that tube, find out what it's recommended for, find out if there are any restrictions for that particular tube.
Baton Rouge has the best drinking water in the nation.
But the quality of our water is being threatened by excessive overpumping, causing saltwater intrusion and increasing chloride concentration.
Industry along the river is using 80 million gallons a day of our drinking water for industrial use.
Industry should use river water. The people should use the drinking water.
We're working for a fair solution. Call Louisiana Commissioner of Conservation Jim Welch. Tell him to start protecting our drinking water now.
Right now we're burning about 8.5. I can't do this on Miami.
We're burning about 27.3 an hour for full throttle. It's extremely impressive.
Burning 29 gallons an hour. I'd be burning close to 40 with my Yamahas. Dude, I'm speechless.
To discover the Verado difference, find a local dealer at mercurymarine.com/Verado. Then take a test drive and experience it for yourself.
It's unbelievable.
Welcome back to SOLA TV. And if you don't know Jeff Brule, accomplished fisherman, but a great guy, good family man. Love to go fishing with Jeff because one of the things he does is he pays attention to a lot of detail. He scopes the place out before he knows he wants to go there.
Well, Jeff's a good tournament fisherman. He spends a lot of time on the water, does a little bit of saltwater fishing, but Jeff's real love is bass fishing and does a little bit of sac-a-lait fishing. He's been working with me on the radio for a number of years, does some excellent reports, and he's a great guy to go with for a couple of reasons. One, he's a great buddy to be around with, but number two, you can learn a lot from Jeff every time you go. Jeff, if you would, maybe tell us about the habitat, the nature of those North Shore rivers where really you cut your teeth fishing.
Hey Joe and Don, I'm over here on the North Shore. I'm on the Pearl River today. About mid-November to early December you want to come to the North Shore and fish up in the woods. And what I mean by that, on the North Shore rivers you have an area that's pretty marshy. You won't see a tree. hardly anywhere. A lot of marsh grass. And then you start moving north up the rivers, you'll start seeing hardwoods like cypress, gum, things like that in the water. It gets real woody. And usually this time of year the water temperature drops. Fish will respond to like spinner baits, Stanley spinner baits. They got the egret spinner baits, and then a Stanley jig. You kind of get around the trees. Another thing you can do is flip havocks. Any kind of red shad worm, havoc red shad worm is great over here. You'll catch all kind of size and species with that too. Now another tip is if the water temperature is pretty cold, like say it starts dropping in the low 60s, just slow down, get around the trees, and the fish are going to get around the wood because the wood stays a little bit warmer, and they'll use it for protection and heat.
But Jeff, I know there's more to these rivers than just bass. You know, when we talk about all the way from the Tchefuncte, Bayou Liberty, Bayou Lacombe, all the way over to the Pearl, there's just more to it than bass fishing.
Another option you have in the fall of the year on the North Shore is speckled trout, redfish, and flounder. But you have to go downriver to the mouths close to Lake Pontchartrain where your shad and shrimp are migrating. Shad will be migrating out, and all of a sudden here comes the shrimp migrating up the river. Guess what? That pulls a lot of the saltwater fish and a few freshwater fish on the points and deeper cuts down in the mouth of the river. So kind of go down south, get in the marsh, throw your spinner bait, your popping cork, and you'll be surprised how many speckled trout and redfish you can catch on the North Shore this time of year.
Jeff, we're in that time of the year now where every 3 to 5 days we're going to get a cold front or at least a norther come moving through the coastal area. How do you deal with that as a bass fisherman?
All right, sometimes you'll have a front come through and you want to fish before the front on the North Shore. The wind will be out of the south, it'll be pushing water in. A lot of times the mouths are really good because it's a little bit warmer. You hadn't had those cold temperatures and you hadn't had the pressure drop. So a lot of times those fronts will trigger the fish to bite just because they know it's going to be cold and they need to feed up before the cold weather comes. But head south, get into the mouths of the rivers, all the way across the North Shore, Maurepas, Lake Pontchartrain, all those rivers will have some fish in the mouth of them. Salt water, sometimes bass will be there too. So get down there and look for shrimp, shad, action in the water, and usually you'll catch fish.
Jeff, I know you spend a lot of time in those rivers, but you also like to fish Lake Pontchartrain, especially the Causeway. We have a little thing about World Series trout. Now that we're through with the World Series, have the trout showed up on the Causeway yet? And what are we going to look for in the next few weeks, maybe on up into Thanksgiving?
All right, you always have your World Series trout show up in the middle of October to 1st of November. If you're going after those are your bigger trout, and you want to get out on the Causeway or your twin spans, mostly the bridges, and you just want to try to pattern the fish. You want to find out if they're 4, 8, 6 miles out, however far out in the Causeway they are, and just move around the pilings, thread in between them until you figure out the exact pattern they are that day due to the tide. But if you want big trout, the Causeway is the best time to go is November.
And you had a little surprise for us at the end. Buzz baits. Come on, buzz bait. That's a spring, summertime bait, right? No, not for you. So tell us a little bit more about how you use buzz baits in the fall and winter.
Joe, most guys think it's too late in the year to throw a buzz bait, but let me tell you, buzz bait's good all year long. But let me give you some tips on how to tune one and make one run correctly in order to catch more fish and get more strikes. Right out of the package, first thing you want to do is you want to bend the head and the wire just slightly down so that you get a nice little angle to the bait. Next thing you want to do is you want to open up the blade just slightly. So what this does is the blade's on top of the water, the hook's deeper in the water. That way the fish don't have to come up so high to get the bait. And also it acts more like a keel and it keeps your bait straight when you're really at a high speed. Now the other thing you want to do to make the little squeak that most guys talk about, just open up the back of this ball buster, and as you're riding to the launch, preferably not on a cold morning, just hold it out the window for about 5 minutes. You don't want to go more than that or you'll destroy the rivet or the blade. But you'll get that little nice squeak. Once you get a little squeak, bend your balls and stuff back next to the blade in the back so that it just makes a little clicking sound. And that'll get fish in the fall, winter, spring, and all summer long.